But if we can't understand God's love, if we can't accept what it is, and then if we can't spend the time to really become that love, we can't give that love.
Yeah. This is Traci Wood, and I am so excited for you to be here today because Traci does something that hardly anybody in the city does. And she represents a ministry, Premier Choice for Women. It's the local pregnancy resource center that we have in this area. And you've been doing it for a little over a year. And I want to know what you've learned. I want to know what excites you. I want to know what makes you want to get up in the morning and go to work. Okay. Because you lead an organization that would be difficult for almost anybody I know to lead, but you seem to enjoy it for some reason and be happy doing it. So, Traci, share a little bit of your story about how you got here, because I think that would be really interesting for people.
Okay, yeah. Well, I actually started with the pregnancy center in 2020. Ironic year to start, but my husband and I went to a worship gathering in Washington, D.C. And while we were there, it was the night before Amy Coney Barrett was going to be voted on. And a man by the name of Lou Engle, who has been a very strong voice for life for many, many years, was there. And he led us in a prayer in front of the Capitol for life, knowing that the next day that vote could be super pivotal for our country.
Yeah.
And so I joined him in prayer. And by the time we were done praying, I just felt this huge stirring in my heart. I just really felt like the Lord was saying to me that I needed to go back to Longview and I needed to be involved in our local area to support women because they were going to need it. And I really felt at that time that the Lord was saying, Roe versus Wade will be overturned, but that doesn't mean we're in the clear. That means women are going to need help more than in the past.
Yeah.
And that is very accurate as
Isn't
to what
that a
has
great
happened.
feeling, though, when you feel him stir your heart?
Yeah.
And you know that, oh, no, I'm about to go a direction I hadn't planned on going.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll just be honest. I mean, I've always, felt strongly about my stance on abortion, that it was not a good choice. But I had never felt compelled to be involved in any way. And so this was something that was really new for me. And, but I came back and made the phone call. I didn't even honestly know what the pregnancy center did. I had no idea. Came and met with the former director, Cheryl, who had been there for a long time. And we sat down and had a conversation. And the more she talked about what they did, the more excited I got. I thought, that is an organization I want to be a part of. Yeah. They are making a difference, not just saving babies, but they're making life change. They're investing in these women. They're coming alongside them, and they're really creating good environments for these children to be raised in. And they're presenting the gospel. I had no idea that the gospel was a piece of this ministry, but it's not just a piece. It's a very important piece of the ministry to present the gospel.
And that's been because of the people who've led it.
Yeah.
Cheryl has put her heart into that whole thing over the years. And I forget the lady the little short lady who. Cindy, yeah.
Yes, yeah.
Who was just poured her heart out.
Yeah.
For that. And both those. And you're the same way.
Yeah. I mean, you might be talking to Barbara.
Oh, I'm thinking
originally
about Barb.
started. Yeah.
Yeah, Barbara Spears.
She was very passionate about it as well. Yeah, and the other exciting thing for me is the more I got involved, the more I started getting involved after I became the director nationwide. God is the center of pregnancy centers nationwide. Yeah. I had no idea. So when I'm on webinars, any kind of training, when I'm looking at software, it doesn't matter whether it's a marketing company, whether it's software for handling our client files, they are all very much God-driven. And so it's super exciting just to see that. I mean, there's, well over 2,000 pregnancy centers, maybe even 2,500 pregnancy centers, and they're all very much, God is the center of what they do. So that's an amazing thing.
So you jumped on the team.
Yep.
Became a volunteer.
Yeah.
What was that like?
Yeah, that was great. I actually loved being a volunteer because I love just getting to have this connection with these women. I was an advocate, and so that meant that on a weekly basis, I was meeting with the same ladies every week and just getting to walk with them. in their journey. And man, some days are rough. Some of these ladies, they're living in a lot of chaos.
Yeah.
And so there was times that sometimes my client would show up when it wasn't her appointment because life was hitting her up the side of the head, but she knew we were there for her and a stable place that she could come. And so
I think that's another thing that people
yeah.
don't really realize, that you have ongoing relationships with people. You're not just there for people to walk through the door and ask questions about what they should do
Yeah.
about pregnancy.
Yeah.
But there's a whole lot going on in that room, in that office, that isn't just about drop-ins.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. If they're willing, not every lady chooses to do it, but the women who choose to continue with us, we're going to walk with them until their child's 2. They're going to have the same advocate. So they're building a relationship with them. That person just becomes their cheerleader, becomes their coach, their mentor. Like I said, some of these women, they don't have anyone in their corner. And sometimes that's all it takes. Just to know that there's one person in their corner could be enough for them to change their mind, whether they're going to risk this big job of parenting or not. Just having one person in their corner. And so, it's just great that these advocates can just walk with them on a weekly basis, be there for them, help them, advance their skills in parenting, and also help them, if they're open to it, help them in their relationship with the Lord.
Yeah.
Disciple them. We're making disciples, really.
And it's not just women who walk through the door.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's women with their significant other, and they're together. They're there as a team who doesn't know what to do.
Yeah.
And so I don't know what percentage of the time men come in with women.
Lately it seems like it's been more even, especially we'll often see the father come in for ultrasounds. That's pretty common. But lately in our Earn While You Learn program, we've been having more fathers come, which is amazing. We know from statistics how important that father is in the home. And so if we can help educate that father to be a good dad and really motivate him to stay with the family, we know that that is so valuable.
And sometimes you're the only voice who's saying stay with the family.
Yeah.
Including their own.
Yeah.
So you became part of the team, were an advocate, and then at some point, Cheryl stepped down and there was a void. And what went through your mind?
Yeah, well, so I moved from advocate to a board member.
I forgot that part,
Fall of 2023, I became a board member. No, fall of 2022, excuse me. And at my very first board meeting is when Cheryl presented her resignation. No. So the very first thing that went through my mind was, wow, I need to help find somebody. This is my job now, to find somebody to be the new executive director. And so I was doing everything I could, messaging pastor friends that I have. Hey, do you know of anyone in your congregation who would be a good fit for this position? I'm taking people to coffee. What do you think about this? I think you would be great at this, taking people for coffee. And in the meantime, the Lord was totally tapping me on the shoulder.
Really?
And I was just like, oof, I don't have time for that. So I was trying to not hear that for a few months.
Yeah. Yeah. You weren't successful. Did you realize
I wasn't successful. Yeah. The voice got a little louder until pretty soon you're like, okay, Lord, I will walk in obedience. Okay.
So explain a little bit about your personality, because I think that it would be interesting for people to know, as you stepped into that role, the person you were bringing into that position with you. What are you like?
Oh, what am I like? I might be a little bit driven. I'm kind of a bit of a perfectionist. But I'm also just totally pro-family.
Yeah.
My family. That was the reason why I was pushing back with the Lord. I had just found out I was going to be a grandma. Neither one of my kids live locally. So I'm like, oh my word, the time it's going to take me to visit my grandchildren. Am I going to have time for this? We also own businesses. And so I'm involved in, the bookkeeping for that and helping facilitate and run those. And so,
but you're not shy about what you think, about what's important to you.
Okay.
And you are extremely compassionate towards people who aren't like you, which I think is really important. Really important for the leader of organizations like Premier Choices to have somebody leading who is willing to embrace people that are different than they are. It's just hard. We tend to gravitate towards people who are just like us.
Right.
They talk like us, they think like us, and yet to have somebody lead an organization that's willing to look at diversity in a community and say, anybody who wants to can walk through these doors and they're going to be loved.
Yeah. It's kind of interesting because the Lord always takes you down a journey. You know, when he calls you, he's going to equip you. And, man, for a little bit over a year, the Lord has just been taking me on this journey of just learning more about his love. And I mean, I've been saved. I was probably in the nursery the week after I was born. My mom was the organist. I don't think she missed a day playing the organ, you know? So
Yeah.
I've been in
And
the
you're
church.
from the local area.
I'm from the local area. Yeah. I grew up in Longview. But even though I've been with the Lord all this time, the Lord has really just in the last couple of years just been speaking to me about love and what that looks like, and that it really does take the Holy Spirit revealing to you what love is, because we just can't really even comprehend it on our own. But if we can't understand God's love, if we can't accept what it is, and then if we can't spend the time to really become that love, we can't give that love.
Yeah.
And so he's just really been working on my heart in the last, just year or two of just just constantly praying, God, just would you open up my mind to that? Would you just help me to understand how deep, how wide, how high your love is for me so that I can give it the same way that you're giving it to me?
And sometimes it's easy to receive it and easy to give it, but it's difficult to articulate it.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing, Traci, that you're really good at, is you're really good at putting the dynamics of what's going on in a relationship with people and God into words that make sense, that aren't lofty, but aren't too simplistic either. I mean, you have a lot of descriptive words when you talk about love, and I think that's really helpful for somebody that's doing what you're doing. Yeah. So let's say you were just sitting on a street corner talking to people walking by, and they knew that they could talk to you about anything that had to do with life, the value of life. What would you say to people just as they walk by about the importance of the value of the life that God gives us?
Well, back when Roe versus Wade was first enacted, I think it was 1971, we didn't really know a lot about what was going on in the womb. We couldn't see, but the technology that we have today is fascinating. I mean, we can see that at 3 weeks, there's a little beating heart. At 6 weeks, there's little fingers. The brain activity is already there. At 7 weeks, they're sucking their thumb. I mean, it's absolutely amazing. So at this point, it's not really a question of when does life begin. Even the scientists agree. Life begins at conception. I mean, the full DNA is there at conception. They know this now. They know when life begins. The question is, does the life have value?
Yeah.
And so then you have to go to God's word to see what does he think about the preborn? And it's all over in his word. I mean, he starts off in Genesis of, he made us in his image. In Jeremiah, he's talking about calling him by name while he's in the womb and putting a calling on his life. Psalms talks about how we're perfectly knit together in our mother's womb by him, and how he's laying out plans for our entire life while we're still in the womb. And so, it's all over. It's when we're talking about John the Baptist in the womb. There's all different places that we can see in the Bible that God agrees that little baby is a life that has value, that he loves even before it's born.
So let's say somebody walks by your little outpost on the streets and you can tell that they're like 7-8 months pregnant. How do you feel? What's in your heart and your head when you see a pregnant woman walk by?
Maybe an excitement about that baby that I can see the bump has a call on its life.
Yeah.
There's already plans. I mean, it's pretty amazing.
No matter what religion they are.
And no matter why the circumstances, it
Yeah.
doesn't matter how that baby got there or why that baby is there. That does not matter. That baby is loved regardless of the circumstances.
Yeah. And every person that's ever been born was a creation of God.
Yeah.
It's fascinating how we have devalued that.
Yeah.
And made it impersonal.
But there's nothing new under the sun, right? We've seen this, multiple times. Hitler did a fabulous job at devaluing the value of the Jews. We've seen it in our country of, devaluing the lives of the slaves, so there's nothing new here.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of somebody starting at a very young age of just pushing an agenda, pushing an agenda, pushing an agenda. So now we have a whole generation that has been raised under the concept that these lives really don't have value. It doesn't matter. The lie of it's just a clump of cells has just been so inundated into their minds that they don't see them as a person.
Yeah.
And so we have to change that. And we can't really change it by policy. You can't really change it by arguing. It's a heart change that has to happen. And we have to raise up this new generation to know and value life from the early days.
Yeah. And they're maybe not getting that.
No. But as a Christian, that should be like our main purpose. Like, it's a conversation that people shy away from. They don't really talk about life in the womb, right? But we need to talk about life in the womb from they're little. I actually brought a book today. I'm going to show you my book.
See?
I actually brought a book today this is a beautifully illustrated children's book called The Little Spark of Life. And it talks about, there's a mom with a little child there, and she's expecting a second child. So from the very beginning, it talks about what's happening in her tummy and how it's developing, and now its heart moves, and now the baby can feel, now the baby can hear. So it walks a child through the developing baby all the way through. But then at the end, it also talks about how we're made in God's image. And I think it's just super important that we do have these conversations with our children, because if we can instill that value in our children from an early age, that this is a person, this baby has value, this baby was made in God's image. And at the same time, we're also educating them, right? We're also educating them of their value, and then they're made in God's image. So, we have all these kids who, there's gender confusion being pushed on them. But if we can make sure that they are just solid in their identity in Christ at an early age, those kind of agendas also are not going to be pushed on them.
Yeah. Well, as they talk about in discipleship circles, somebody's discipling our kids.
Exactly.
And we ought to at least be in that mix.
Right? Yeah, you think?
If not leading it, we ought to at least have a voice
Yeah.
in the discipleship of our own kids.
Yeah.
And I know that that's a thing that you fight for. That's important for you.
Yeah.
I pastored a long time. Abortion was always a difficult thing to talk about from the pulpit for a lot of different reasons. We've talked about that a little bit. I was always aware of how many people in the room were affected by abortion when I was talking to them. And it was like, if you knew that half the people in the room had gotten in traumatic car accidents, it'd be hard to bring up a car accident in front of these people, because it would make them feel that all over again, the emotion of it.
Yeah.
And so it's really difficult to talk about. And it's not the only thing that's difficult. It's hard to talk about sin either,
Right.
Because it triggers people. But it's something that pastors need to educate congregations about. And what would your encouragement be to pastors to give them kind of a healthy perspective on how to present the whole area of life to their congregations?
Yeah, I would highly encourage them not to shy away, because that is why in the church we have that kind of a history.
Yeah,
there was just a brand new study done. 40% of women and 50% of men who had an abortion or been involved in an abortion identified as a Christian and said that they attended church at least once a month. So we know that it's still happening within the church. And so I feel like the pastor has got to be presenting life within the church so that we can turn that around. But I would say the main thing is, yes, present life, but yes, present forgiveness.
Yeah.
Right? It doesn't matter what sin we've done. If we go, he's faithful and just to forgive us of our sin. And so I would say probably every time you talk about life in the womb, the value of life, anything that has to do with this topic, you really need to have both at the same time.
Yeah.
You need to mention, but there is forgiveness. And that is one more thing that we do. We offer a post-abortion class to help women walk through that.
Talk about that a little bit, because I think that would surprise a lot of people, especially that the fact that you offer a post-abortion class to men.
Yes. Yeah. Men and women. It's interesting because I think sometimes women will just kind of stuff it down. Especially I think they feel like, I was a part of that decision. I don't have the right to grieve. And so they'll just stuff that down, and try to just move on with their life. And oftentimes they don't realize that is affecting them. That's the cause of some things that are going on in their life. So we've heard women say, man, I had this huge anger problem and I didn't even know until I started walking through healing that was the underlying cause of my anger issue. You know, when we have unforgiveness, whether it's unforgiveness against ourselves for the decision we made, maybe it's unforgiveness towards the baby's father if he pushed them towards it. Whoever the unforgiveness is towards, unforgiveness can really eat you up inside.
Oh, yeah.
And so sometimes these women don't even realize that maybe that we've had women that it's been 20 years since they've had their abortion and they've walked through the class. And then on the other side, they're just like, oh, now I can move on. Now I can, do X, Y, Z that the Lord's called me to do because I didn't feel like I could before, And so it's an 8-week class that they walk through. It's a process. Yeah. It's not an easy process. It can be really emotional. Sometimes the women will feel like they want to quit in the middle. So it's definitely not an easy process. But man, when they've went through the whole process, they're so glad they did. That's so
exciting. Premier Choice used to be called Caring Pregnancy Center, has gone through a lot of changes in a short period of time. Yeah. There's a new center, a new location. Yeah. There's a bunch of new volunteers.
Yes, yeah.
There is new services that you offer. Could you talk about, what do people see? What do people experience when they walk through the doors of Premier Choice now?
Yeah, now we're offering medical services. In the past, they've, way back in the past, they were doing a little bit of ultrasound. And then off and on, they've offered a little bit of pregnancy testing, but now we've kind of moved into more of a medical arena. And so we have a lot of women that are coming in for those free services, the free pregnancy test and the ultrasound. Even if they're absolutely abortion determined, they want an abortion. Those services are important to them. Some people are like, why would they want an ultrasound? Why would they want to see their baby? They're not coming to see their baby. They're coming to know how far they are. A lot of women have no idea how far they are, and they need to know that depending on what kind of an abortion that they're going to have. And so, so now they're coming in to a place that is now we have the room and the space all set up for it. And we've tried super hard to create a really peaceful atmosphere with our colors, with our decor, with the music that we play, all of it, because these women sometimes are in a lot of chaos. And so we just want them to feel a peace when they walk through the room. So that's been in the back of our mind as we're putting the center together. And we do have a lot. You mentioned a lot of volunteers. We have now I think we have 4 volunteer nurses, RNs, that have joined the team. And then we have our nurse that's also on staff, our nurse that oversees all of the medical. And we've added advocates and really expanded. We've added birthing classes for our community. So it used to be that Peace Health offered birthing classes. We're talking group birthing classes. And they stopped from COVID, and they have no plans of starting that again. And so now to do a group birthing class, you would have to travel to Vancouver unless we started. Yeah. And so now we just finished up another round of birthing classes. It's so fun because they have this group, and they bring their support, their coach, whoever that might be, with them. And so they can have conversations, they can ask the nurse questions. And so, a lot of changes, but they've all been really exciting.
And you offer clothing and supplies to the moms?
Yep. Yeah. If they join our Earn While You Learn program, every time they complete a lesson with their advocate, then they're earning supplies, whether that's diapers or clothes or equipment, the things that they need.
Really cool stuff there. People in this community are very generous.
Very generous.
So how can someone who hears this interview support Premier Choice?
Well, a couple of different ways. They could support us financially. Mm-hmm. We have, ways that they can give financially. They could support us by bringing in donations of any of those things: clothing, diapers, equipment. And the probably the most important thing is by prayer. Yeah. We really feel that we're in a battle. we feel it on a daily basis. I'm battling with Google right now. Google is doing things that is making me so mad. So we are in a battle, and we need the prayer support. So man, as people pass by our center, if they pass by our signs, our little sandwich boards that are out on Ocean Beach Highway, if they could just remember to pray for us and lift us up. We also have a way that people can get a text message if they want to sign up for that. And so then when we have a lady in the center that's abortion minded, we can send out a text message. So we have a whole army
very cool.
praying while we're meeting with her.
Yeah.
So at the same time that we're having these really important conversations, we've got an army praying for our advocate and praying for her. So that's another way that they can support us.
Yeah. You're much more visible than ever. But the abortion topic is much more visible, and you hear about it more. It's out on, it's going to be probably a major component of the campaign for the presidential race and all the other races too.
All the other races too.
So we'll put the information in the interview that about how to get a hold of you.
Yeah. And volunteers too. People can volunteer. Yeah.
Do you have plans for the future?
We would love to add STD testing. That's just a way to connect with women before they need our services for pregnancy, for us to develop a relationship with them, build trust. So then if they do find themselves in a situation of an unplanned pregnancy, we've already built trust with them. Or maybe a friend, they were like, hey, I was treated well there. So that is a hope. I would also love to see some fathering group classes, like bringing in some fathers that would mentor fathers. I would love to see that too.
Yeah. Well, you are an amazing woman, and you're an amazing leader. And I'm really glad that you're doing I'm glad you said yes, because if you had not done that, a lot of the things that are happening right now, I'm not sure they would have happened. Not to say anything about anybody else that leads, but you just have a way, Traci, of getting stuff done. I'm sure the people around you know that you can get it done. So thank you for doing what you're doing.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for your time.
Yeah.